Welcome back to Warrington Basketball. Today's Coach's Corner is going to be talking about winning basketball versus development basketball. We are joined by James McCloskey from Culture Cobras, Tom Schubert from Twitch, and Colin Rivett from Mersey Mavericks. How are you, gents? You all okay?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Excellent, thanks.
Good, thank you. Good, thank you.
Good. As discussed, winning basketball versus development basketball. Can you do both? Tom Schubert, we'll start with you, please, mate.
Yeah, I think it depends what you define as winning basketball, and depends what you define as development, really. It's like, I think you have to look at one of the things that we've been doing during lockdown and that we've talked about, Josh, and we've talked about on these previous corners, is developing a bit more of an ethos of a club. What is the goal of your club? What is the ambition of your club? And the same for the league, really. What is the ambition for the league? Is the ambition for the league to get lots and lots of England players and get that sort of like really high caliber players, or is it to get hundreds of kids playing basketball and having fun and enjoying themselves? Or is it, can we do everything? I don't know I think we probably have to specialise a little bit, because I don't think in a perfect world you'd be able to do everything, but I think you need to almost focus on particular things and put your energy and put your talents into those, and work with each other and in collaboration with each other, to be successful. So yeah, I think to some extent you can do both, because obviously if you're developing players, they're going to be more successful, so they're going to win more. But how do we define it? What is winning basketball? Because we've said before, if you win every game by 50 points in the Warrington leagues, have you won? Have you done anything? Have you achieved anything? One of the first teams that I had in Warrington had Rabber on it, and Jamal and Jamie Prout, and all these really, really good players. And they won every game by 60 points, and it was completely pointless. Yeah. And at the end of the season, we split the team in half, added some like raw players that just wanted to play, and we didn't win the title the next year. But it was a lot more fun, because just turning up and watching a lot of kids batter some other kids it's boring for me as a coach, and I think it's quite boring for the kids after the initial enjoyment of the first few weeks. So I don't know what the others think.
James, what in terms of the Culture Cobras? So I know you obviously coach Cheshire Wire as well, but the Culture Cobras, what would be your sort of philosophy on that? And winning and development, go from, obviously you've got quite a few new teams for those that don't already know about Culture Cobras. You can speak from your point of view, please.
So, as a term coming from Culture Cobras, I want to develop the players. I want them. Winning is great. Every team wants to win games, but at the end of the day, you've got to develop those players so they've got opportunities later on in their basketball careers. So, like Tom said, playing for England, playing national level, so playing for Cheshire Wire and stuff like that. So in my terms, when I coach, I want to develop the players. Winning's great and it's good, but if you're going to constantly win games, it gets a bit boring after a while. And we can all see that. I mean, you look at the NBA, 2015 when Cleveland and Golden State were just winning games constantly. It got boring. No one wanted to watch that after 3 years. It was constantly the same thing. You don't want to see that in the same leagues as what we're playing now. So that's where I see it. When I play basketball and it's a close game, that's what you want to see. You want to see these close games. You don't want to see a team absolutely hammering another team, because then those kids just don't want to play anymore. They get sick of it because you're just making them feel awful. So I think developing the players to make them better players, splitting teams up if there's too many strong players in one team, do 2 teams and see how it goes like that. That's what I think personally.
Yeah. Colin, what would your coaching philosophies be for Mersey Mavericks?
Well, firstly, there's a big trap here, and I think we're walking right into it just by the title of what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. What we should have called this, I think, is player development versus scoring more baskets than the other team right now.
Scrappy title.
Yeah, but if you call it that, that's what we're actually talking about, isn't it? We're talking. We're not. Why is winning, big picture, just mean we're going to beat that team tonight?
Yeah.
That's not winning. That's just something a version of winning that we call it. So, and I think it does come down to, what is your philosophy on basketball? Why do you coach? basketball. I mean, any coaches who are listening to this, actually think about it. Why do you coach basketball? I've been thinking about it because I knew we were going to do this week. And I kind of thought, well, I wrote down 2 different philosophies. Okay, and I'll literally read it out so I don't get it wrong. So, philosophy 1. I coach to give young people a lifelong love and involvement in the game of basketball. My self-esteem and self-worth is linked to my ability to develop kids' basketball skills and to better enable them to face the challenges of life through experiences on the basketball court. Version 1. Okay. Version 2. I coach to win. My self-esteem and self-worth is linked to the ability of 10 children to put a ball through a hoop more often than 10 other children. Okay. Now, coaches, which is your philosophy? Yeah, which would you rather be, A or B? Clearly, life isn't as black and white as that, but there's a scale there, and where are you on that scale between my self-esteem and self-worth, which is why I believe most people coach, because it does something for us as coaches. Is that tied to how many points your kids can score? Or is it tied to how you can help those kids in life? So there you go, 2 philosophies.
Yeah. Sorry
I
about
agree
that.
with.
Just had James.
I agree with that philosophy of like A and B. I agree with that. As coaches, we need to be able to develop players so that they're ready for not just basketball but future careers as well. Like when I was coached, it was always about teamwork, and if you can get kids to work as well as in the team, they're just gonna excel through life. And I think that's what we need to do as coaches: is coach, not actually just coach to win. It's to coach the actual players and develop them. Definitely.
Yeah, and also on that, a big part of learning about life is learning about losing.
Yeah,
because no one goes through life winning all the time, and you got to learn how to cope with losing.
Yeah,
actually,
I agree with that.
It's a much more important skill than actually winning.
Yeah, definitely.
I think on that front, that's one of the things that John Amici always says is sport isn't a magic wand. It's not like you walk on the court and immediately you're a better person. You have to structure an environment where you create opportunities for somebody to become a better person and to kind of model that. Vicky Jackson on the Facebook posts, I don't know her, but she was talking about some of the things about how we role model as coaches, talking to referees, talking to players, doing all these things, and how they copy what we do. And then parents will copy the same things based on your perfect parents thing the other week. So how are we presenting ourselves? How are we dealing with things? I think Colin's thing about failure is really, really important. Like at our college, we get kids coming in, some of the smartest kids across the Northwest. And for some of them, it's the first time that they've failed in sort of mock exams or in assignments. It's the first time they've not got an A, and they're that level of bright. And learning through the process of failing and learning how to accept failure and be self-reflective and learn and get better yourself is a really, really important skill that they develop over the course of the years. I think in sports clubs and basketball clubs, that's something we should be looking towards probably a little bit more actively building in as well. Like, do we want kids that are pretty good basketball players at 18 and then stop playing? Or do we want kids that are pretty good human beings at 18 and are interested in learning and love basketball and want to carry on going? Whether they've made it to England squads or whatever, it's what do we want them as people? Yeah.
And we have to redefine what winning means beyond just scoring more points than the other team. You know, so my midlife crisis is taking up triathlon at age 49. I will never win a triathlon. There's 700 people doing it, and if I finish in the top 150, then I've done brilliantly. But since I've started, every year, all of my times have got better. So am I a loser? Absolutely not. I'm a winner. I'm healthier than I've ever been. I'm happier than I've ever been. Because in that sport, you're not just defined by what the final score is. You're competing against yourself. And we need to bring an element of that into basketball in terms of actually being able to measure development. This is where I am now. This is how good I am at this. This is where I want to be. Now I've got there. Where's the next stage? moving on, like that. I really think it's important that coaches redefine winning as not, we've all coached, well, certainly I've coached plenty of sides. You lose the first game against someone by 100 points. There's no way when you come to play them in the second game, you're not beating that side. But if you lose by 40 points, then, that's a win, isn't it? You've improved more than the other team. You're winning that race to get better.
Yeah.
So for the Warrington Basketball sort of association that we're looking to develop for when we go back and we start being able to play competitive games again, we're going to look to try and get all clubs to sort of be singing off the same hymn sheet, really. So I spoke to Tom about this already, and he's aware of it. Not everyone is yet, but it's something that we're going to be talking and discussing about when we do get back. We want everyone to be sort of working the same ethos for that development, so not necessarily just wins and trying to batter a team and it being counterproductive for pretty much everyone. How do we get it? This is a question for you all. How do we get it to those that, so obviously we'll have, with the atmosphere at the Warrington Basketball anyway, people will buy into it. We may find there might be one or two teams that might still think, you know what, we are still going to press and just force teams to turn the ball over. We're going to smash them. How do we get them out of that sort of mindset, and how do we get them all to buy into the longer term development?
Personally, I think that when you're looking at the young age groups, so year 4s and 5s, 6s and 7s and 8s and that, I think there should be a score limit in the first half to allow kids to have both a shot at scoring, because when you look at some of the age groups, like year 7, 8s and 9 groups, you can see teams absolutely hammering and battering them, and it's not good to see them come down with that self-esteem. They don't want to play it. So to have a score limit in the first half and keeping that same rule at the minute where you don't constantly have full court defense, you have a half court defense and stuff like that in the second half. I think that's a good way to do that. Personally, that's what I think anyway.
Colin,
I'm not always a huge fan of EB, but the stuff that they put in last year around having to have, forced substitutions. So your first 5 play the first 5 minutes of a quarter. The second 5 have to play the second 5. You've got to have 5 substitutions. That's worked really well, because it means that you can't just keep your first 5 on for the whole game. You've got to develop your whole squad. And they also have the mercy rule, where once you're 20 points up, you can't press anymore. You've got to play half court.
Yeah, we do that with the young.
I mean, it's the difficulty is that it doesn't really matter what rules you put in around pressing or whatever. If one team is significantly better than the other team, they're just going to struggle. They're just going to beat them. Because, again, often it's actually easier for a very poor team to score against a full court press than it is against a half court, because they'll get some, throw it over the top and just get a layup every once in a while. I mean, they'll concede way more against the press, but they actually might score some against a half court, a good half court man to man. They'll probably score none. So you just, it's really hard to put a rule in place to deal with that, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to come from almost structure of the league and where teams are coming in and what they're doing. So, like, if the leagues are structured, one of the things that we're lucky with in the Warrington Centre is the ability to have quite small leagues and multiple divisions and move people during the season. Because I think when you've got that flexibility, we probably need to take advantage of it a little bit more, because it does mean that we can sort of help pay people in the right areas. And if we're all in agreement for that, then we're not too caught up on, but if I stay in this division, I can win a shiny plastic trophy at the end of the year, then we're all right. I think Colin's point about with the teams, I remember going to watch one of Steve's under-14s teams, Cheshire Wire, and he'd done loads of prep and he'd done things that he'd got them sorted out. And the first play of the game, this 12-year-old kid from Manchester Giants dribbled through the middle of his defence and two-hand dunked it on one of the kids, and we were like, this game isn't going to go well for him. It was never going to be competitive after that. So sometimes, especially at younger age groups, one or two really exceptional players can make a massive difference. And it's almost sort of, how can we work it? I think one of the things that we've not talked about, Josh, but I think that we need to be careful of in terms of, I was thinking about this on the conversation that we were having on the Coaches Corner on the Facebook thing, where everyone's got similar ideas and everyone's quite positive, and we're looking at, we want to play man defense, want to move the ball, make sure everyone gets minutes, which is all really good. But you still want to keep in some of that individualized, this is a different ethos of each different club. So if each club has got, because I was thinking about Brixton Top Cats and Manchester Magic as my two comparisons, is they're both really good clubs, National League clubs, they're well run. Manchester Magic have won countless national titles at every age group. Brixton, not really as much. But the players that have come out of Brixton, Lyle Deng, the Bakers, Justin Robinson, Boateng, like multiple GB internationals and guys that are playing Ogo, Adebayo. So loads of guys that are playing across the country and have turned their life around. And there's a really good little mini documentary on Justin Robinson on Hoopsfix at the minute. But which you want to have freedom to have both of those sort of clubs in the system, but it's what can they learn from each other? What can we learn from each other to create a good environment, which includes lots of different options? And I don't know what people think about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess really it's probably clearly both systems are about development, but it's whether you focus more on individual development or team development. Manchester are successful. I mean, yes, they have very, very good players, but possibly not quite that elite level. But they've got very, very good players who all play really well together. Whereas Brixton are more, we've got this one guy who's fantastic, and we've developed him, and we give him the ball most of the time, and he scores for us. And I guess that's the sort of your choices. And I think I agree with you. There's room, there's room for both. But I think, going back to your point before, I think it's really a good thing to do is to have your league flexible. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, just off the top of my head, maybe having not just like one season, but having, like sort of 3 mini seasons. And so you adjust where the teams are at each season. So maybe you get a little gong for winning, through to December, and then another little gong for when you readjust your leagues for March, and then maybe a final great big gong for whoever wins the one at the end of June when you finally finish or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it tends to be done at kind of random intervals, doesn't it, Josh? You moving around teams depending on the league. Whereas having a bit more of a structured, this is going to be the 6 weeks, and then we're splitting into 2, or we're splitting into 3, or however many we need to split into.
So you're aware, Colin, because I know obviously your experience at Warrington Basketball is probably not much of watching that haven't been involved. So what we would do is we would normally have a introductory sort of 2 to 3 weeks with, so a lot of the teams we already know, and a lot of the players we already know, obviously, because we've seen them play. They've been there for several years. But a team would go in whichever sort of division we've put them in. Say we've got 2 or 3 divisions, at a certain age group. If they're winning in that age group after the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we then put them up. You can kind of get a feel of how good a team is by watching, and then sort of order them from then. But yeah, sometimes depending on numbers, we've also tried conferencing. So it might be that there might be a 2 divisions of 4, and then every 4th week you play a team from the other division. So a team might be winning a little bit more heavily, or might be losing a bit more heavily. Then the rest of the season, it's a little bit more competitive in terms of the games they're playing. But yeah, obviously with local league, it is quite a wide range of players already. So we've got quite a lot of National League players, and then we've got kids that, they've done it at PE and they've heard about us and they want to come in, and then we've developed a new team. So it is difficult to manage. The main, I don't think it will be an issue, but I think when we come back and we've got everyone singing off the same hymn sheet, what I was saying before, of trying to make it so that it's, we're not bothered about the scores, and it's not just a matter of, we can get 100 points here, so let's score 100 points because who's that benefiting? Is we might have the odd team that say that they're up for it, but there might be an ego that we have to try and we might have to try and get around, which is going to be difficult to to achieve, I think. But hopefully, everyone's keen to go forward with it. What do you think with the older ages? So when we come to say under 21s and under 17s that we've got, for them, when you're 17, 18, you want to score all the points and stuff like that. What would be your sort of the way around that, do you think? Trying to get guys, obviously for you, Tom, you've got an under 17s, or you've got several under 17 teams, you've got several under 21 teams. They will listen to you, but then we've also got teams that are kind of self-coached, aren't they? So they might not have a coach that's there all the time, and they're going to be much more difficult to try and say, like, why didn't you move the road? There's no rule against him not playing his own defense or not pressing the ball and forcing turnover, and they're the ones that want to win. What do you think we should do there?
So I think with those type of teams, you want to be looking for the kids who want to be coaches, and working with those kids who want to be coaches, saying, okay, great, we're going to help you become a coach. One of the key things you've got to realise as a coach is that this has got to be about developing all of your players, not just playing your first 5. I want to see you playing all 10 of your players. That's a big part. What is going to be your coaching philosophy? This is the philosophy that we think is a good philosophy. Clearly, you don't have to have that philosophy, but do you think winning is the philosophy that you should employ? I think you need to look for those, because presumably in each of those teams, some kid or other has stepped forward and put coach next to their name on the score sheet or whatever. Work with those kids.
Yeah.
Build coaches.
I mean, I think at the ball hall, there is you see a lot of teams now where the kids that are coming up from like Tom's team or like Cheshire Wire or any other team, they want to coach, and you can see that, and it's really good to see that the players coming in and actually wanting to coach, and you can see them doing a really good job as well with the little kids, and it's really good that they're wanting to do that and progressing that thing. 'Cause that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't the best of basketball players, as we all know. I'm not the best. I can't score. I can't pass really well, as we all know, because all my shots get blocked and stuff like that.
I'm a very hard worker.
Like, coaching's great. I love it. I am. But the defense is pretty good as well sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think coaching's like, I love it. I think it's brilliant. Being able to develop players is what we want to do, and when you can see other kids want to do that, I think it's amazing. You can see it in the ball hall every weekend before the lockdown. You can see them wanting to be there and wanting to coach them, and you could just see the kids having a great time, which was good.
Yeah, I think Colin's point is good, and James's point in terms of tapping into these kids' enthusiasm and how into it they are. Like, one of the things that Steve and me have done over summer, we've stolen off Sergio from Manchester of player evaluation forms and what they want to improve on, and give themselves a 6-week target and creating their own training schedule to move towards it with some of the older players. Now, if you can do that with those guys when they're coming into the ball hall as sort of player coaches, this is what I want to improve on. I want to improve as a leader. I want to improve as a distributor. I want to improve as a point guard. How are you going to do that? Maybe you can get them to do that as coaches, like an actual formal process where you sit down with them as the head coach of the club and say, you're going to get player X 10 shots a game or 5 shots a game, or get them more involved, or get them really enthusiastic. And then you've got a little tangible goal for them to work towards.
Yeah.
So you do play on the fact they want to get better, because realistically, it's going to be the most talented players on the team that are in charge of coaching it properly, because they tend to be the ones that are most enthusiastic, most forceful personality-wise, and they'll kind of get people to do what to do. But yeah, taking advantage of their skills and talent, and that is how most of our best coaches at the centre develop, to be fair, from coming on as players, like Rabber and like Dominic at Sounds, and Steve's a good player and all that, and then move into coaching after that, I think.
Do you think it will be like that at the National League level? So obviously Warrington Basketball, I kind of feel like it will be an easy transition into that kind of ethos anyway. But with National League, obviously it is supposed to be a more competitive level. Do you think they will be? Do you think it could be manageable where they're keeping close games? Because I know the way they structure some of their league, there's still teams that are quite heavily better than other teams in the same division. Colin, you'll know more of this with Mez Mavericks, but I'm sure you've played games where you thought what Tom was saying.
It's mostly merciless. frankly. I mean, and well, coaches will find all sorts of excuses and reasons for why they have won by 100 points. None of which will be, I just wanted to show you how good a coach I am. But the reality is that's really what they want to do. I mean, the way I know this because the way they have this system of the 5-on-5 off in the fourth quarter, you can play any 5 you want. Yeah. So if you're 100 points up at the start of the fourth quarter and any of your first 5 play any of the fourth quarter, what's that about?
Yeah.
But you see that, a lot. And it's wrong. It's just wrong. But it's like trying to turn an oil tank around.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not going to happen quickly. But all we can do is say, this is what we believe in. This is how I coach my team. I can't control how you coach your team, but if we're up by 40, then the kids who sit at the end of the bench and when we're in a close game aren't going to touch the court in a fourth quarter. They'll have the whole fourth quarter. But yeah, it's tough in National League. It is tough, even at under 14s in the development league.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Do you think that's more the league structure's fault, or do you think it is literally just egos of coaches?
So the problem you've got is that from especially because a lot of the sides or sort of you start at under 12s. So you might have, I've coached a team of under 12s playing under 14s National League. You're getting battered every week. Yeah. And then you go through, and by the time you're under 14s, those same kids are now, battering other teams who've got under 12s in them. And because clubs tends to go through this stage of, we're rubbish now because we're all under 12s, and then we're really strong because we're all under 14s, and then they cycle back again to be at the bottom. So it's quite hard to get a divisional system where you say, Manchester Magic are always good, but West Lancs Warriors are good, and Mavericks are rubbish, because it tends to change as year on year. So it's very difficult at the start of the season to sort of put clubs in their correct box, especially because you also have this situation. Again, it comes back to what are coaches' philosophies, as you were saying with the Central Venue League, that you've got some coaches who would just rather be a big fish in a small pond, and they don't want to play in the league that they should be in, where they'll finish mid-table. They want to win the lower league. So even if you ask them at the start, where should you be? They'll say, oh, well, we want to be in the bottom one. Thanks very much.
I think the structure of allowing playoff spots to the teams in the lower conferences didn't help that either. Whereas if I win a bad conference, it's better than if I finish 6th in a really good conference.
Yeah. Actually, the other thing that I think where EB have got it wrong, and I think this is still the case, I'm pretty sure, they're deciders for where teams might finish in the league or who gets into the playoffs is on points difference overall, rather than on the head-to-head games between two sides. So that just encourages coaches, well, I've got to beat every side I can by 100, because at the end of the season, those 100, that points difference that I've run up against all the poor teams might mean I finish a higher place, or I get into the playoffs, or I don't get into the playoffs. Yeah. Much better if you run in a league to say any decider is on the 2 games, the net point difference in just the 2 games between the sides involved. And that then negates the need to hammer the weaker sides.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think BE did look, I remember it was in a roadshow about 3 or 4 years ago when they were looking at changing competitive structures and putting in what Colin had suggested before around a 6-week period where all the teams would kind of play each other, they'd find out groupings and then move them in. I don't know whether it's logistically that they've struggled to put that in place, or whether it's a kind of clubs pushing back against it as a route. But I know that's what they do in France, because somebody was saying at that point there, where there's a lot more like fluidity at the beginning of the year, and then you get people into the right sort of leagues as they go on. But for every reason, it's not happening. I think a similar thing happened with the under-12s, where Basketball England's original under-12s idea was really good and based on their coaching game plan and based on the research of having smaller baskets, lower baskets, and all this sort of thing. And I think because of facilities, really, there was a big pushback from clubs, and they said, no, we don't want to do it that way. And then instead of sticking to their guns, they kind of capitulated, which I don't know if that was positive or negative. I would probably say negative, but you know, I don't know what people think.
Right, guys, I think we're going to have to end there, unfortunately, as we are due to end. For those that are watching, if you've not already subscribed, please subscribe, like and comment on the video. Let us know what you think in terms of winning versus development and what your definition of winning is. Gents, thank you very much for coming on. We'll have to get together again and we'll get involved in the next topic. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks very much. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Carl. Cheers, guys.